Hi, today we'd like to show you how to change a router bit on a Hoffmann X15 manual Dovetail Routing Machine. As always, when you do any kind of adjustment on the motor, adjusting the bit or anything, you need to unplug your machine. I like to do it right here at the machine and keep the unplugged cord in my line of sight. That's especially important if the machine is plugged into a power cord, because if you simply unplug the cord at the wall and you're working on the motor, a co-worker could come by, plug it back in, and that would not be a good surprise. So now that we're safe, next thing we'll take the miter plate off. Gives us a little bit more room to work. And we're going to raise the motor carriage up. I've made myself a little simple 1-inch spacer block here. Raise it up, put your spacer right here. That keeps it about ½ an inch above the table. On the back, on the side of the motor bracket is a 6mm Allen bolt. And you simply use 6mm key, loosen it up, and you can slide the motor straight out of the machine. Next step would be to remove the old chip breaker. And that is mounted in here with a small bolt. Simply unscrew it. Bolt comes out to the top, and the chip breaker drops down underneath. The chip breaker, and here's the bolt. We'll set this aside for now. You can place the motor right on the machine table, and on those 530 watt motors we use a 14 and a 17mm open-end wrench. You set it on the collet, break the collet loose, and you can now tell you can spin the collet nut about 1.5 turns, then it tightens up again. In this state, the bit is still tight in the router, in the collet, and if you try to pull it out by hand, you will likely cut yourself. You won't get the bit out. So turn the collet nut until it's tight again. Put your 17mm wrench back on, get over that safety hump, and you can now pull the bit straight out. Got a new router bit here to install. Slide it in. Just slightly tighten the collet nut. You still want to be able to adjust that bit in and out a little bit. So now you can reinstall the motor. When you slide that motor back in, you don't want to slide it all the way in until it bottoms out. Keep it back about a 1/16 to maximum a 1/8 of an inch in the bracket. That simply gives you a little bit room for adjustment later on should you need it. In the toolkit that came with your machine, you have a machined aluminum setup jig that has 3 steps. The shallowest one is for our W1 bits, the medium for W2, and the deepest for W3. We're using a W2 bit, so we're using the medium step here, and we use that to adjust our bit accordingly. Now that we've got this set, we need to remove the motor one more time, because there's no good way to get to the collet with the motor installed. And now you tighten the collet nut securely again. Back into the machine. Again, we use your setup jig, medium step. Slide it in until the bit touches the step. And you can now tighten up the bolt on the side so the motor is secured. The next step, in order for us to test our setting, is to simply make a sample corner joint. Just put our miter plate back on. And I've got 2 just 3/4 inch pieces of sample material here. Plug the machine back in. I'll set my routing stroke here with my key. Make 2 cuts. And we'll insert the key. As you drive the key in, you can tell that it's pulling the joint nice and tight. It's a good fit. You can check the alignment of your corner out here on the outside edge, as well as the face is nice and tight. So that is a good setting, and we don't need to change it anymore. We'll leave it alone. Take the miter plate back off, just give us a little more room. And unplug the machine again at this point. It's simply safer rather than just turning the motor off. And now I've made myself a second block here, and this is 2 inches tall. And this time I want to raise it up a little bit higher, have a bit more room. This was the old chip breaker. You see how it's cut out here by the router bit for the initial cut. If your old chip breaker is still in good shape, such as this one, and if you're simply replacing a bit because it's dull with one of the same size, or if you go from, let's say, a W2 bit to a W2 oversize, you can reuse the old chip breaker that you have. If the chip breaker is torn up a little bit, if you're changing to a smaller bit size, it's a good idea to install a new one. This is a new one that comes with the router bit. And it's installed right here from the underside. And the bolt goes in from the top. You just got to be careful when you work here because you're in close proximity to the bit, and the edges, the tips, can be pretty sharp, especially on a brand new bit, so just be careful and take your time. Tighten up the bolt. And we'll set it up here. Okay, so we've got the new bit installed. Now we need to cut, our initial cut through a new chip breaker needs to be from the top down, but we don't want to just cut through it because we run the risk of tearing it up on the surface, which would defeat the purpose of the chip breaker. And to avoid any kind of tear out, we use just a piece of scrap wood, in this case about 3/4 inches thick, and I'll plug the machine back in. As soon as I plug it back in, the motor will start up, and we'll slowly make our initial cut from the top down. Dusty. So here you go. The new router bit is installed. It's set at the correct setting. We verified it with a test cut. We then installed a new chip breaker. We made the first cut from the top down with a piece of scrap material on top. So don't have any tear out on it. All we need to do now is reinstall our miter plate, and our Hoffmann X 15 Dovetail Routing Machine is ready to go.